Hey everybody, it's Rod with the Photo Fair coming back at you with another video. Today I'm going to talk about the Irix 11mm ultra-wide-angle lens for full frame. This is a Swiss designed and South Korean built lens, and I've owned it for a couple of years now. It's available in two finishes, the Firefly, which you see here, and the Blackstone, which is a little bit more of an upgraded finish. We'll talk a little bit about that. Is this a good lens, or is it garbage town? Well, let's find out. So the Irix 11mm, this is 11mm on a full frame camera, and it was, when it came out, the widest single lens reflex lens for full frame ever made. It of course tied Canon, which makes an 11-24 zoom, and it still is the widest single lens reflex lens. Now there is a 10mm lens available from Voigtlander for rangefinder cameras and mirrorless cameras, and so that's wider, but that will not work on a DSLR. This will. For those of you who shoot with crop sensor cameras, this really is not a good lens for you. You've got this huge, giant, heavy thing, and if you're not using it on full frame, it's just not a lens for you. There's lots of great lenses out there that you can get from the various camera manufacturers that go from like 10 to 22 or 10 to 16 or whatever, and will do a much better job than this will on an APS-C camera. But if you have a full frame camera, be it a DSLR or a mirrorless, this is an amazing lens. So I'm going to show some photos, going to talk about how I've used it. For me, primarily it's a real estate lens, and that's really the only kind of pro photography that I do anymore, because I'm a realtor and I do shoot most of my own pictures with few exceptions. And this lens gets me out of tight spots at times. Now my go-to lens for real estate is Canon's 16-35 L series lens. This is the f4 lens with image stabilization. I love this lens, and when I'm shooting real estate, I can shoot 90% of the shots I need with this lens. But then there's that time when I just need to really get a little more in the frame, and that's when I reach for the Irix. And it has been a very good performing lens. So why would you want a lens this wide? Well, if you are a landscape photographer, you can get some pretty dramatic landscapes. The trick with these super ultra wide lenses is to have something in the foreground, preferably, to really give you that expansive look. If you just have a blank foreground in front of you, it's going to be a pretty boring picture with everything being way off in the distance. There are some exceptions to that if you were trying to express desolation, for example, in a desert landscape or something. But generally speaking, with these ultra-wide lenses, it's good to have something up in the foreground, then a midground, and then a background to really take advantage of the 126-degree angle of view that this lens provides. 126 degrees, it's amazing. So take a look at a few of these photographs. Some of these are real estate photos, some of these are just some shots I've done with the lens. They're pretty impressive, and I'll talk a little bit about the quality of the lens, how it compares to some other lenses. Take a look. Okay, we're out here on the waterfront in Vancouver using the Irix 11. Hand holding this thing, it's a bit heavy for vlogging, but it gives you an idea of just how wide 11mm is. It is seriously hardcore wide. Look at that. That's nuts. Crazy. So this lens, it performs really well. It's really sharp in the center. It's reasonably sharp way out up in the corners up here, and I don't think it's quite as good as Canon's 11-24L. I did rent that lens. I don't own it, but I did rent that lens, and that lens is a little sharper, particularly out in the corners and even a little bit in the middle. But let's be fair for a second. I paid $500, $600 for this lens, 5 or 600. That Canon L lens is $3,000. So yeah, it gives you 11 to 24. It's a great range. Honestly, if Canon had put an image stabilizer in that lens, I probably would have bought it. I really like image stabilizers. There are times when I just can't use a tripod, or frankly don't want to use a tripod sometimes in interiors of homes. And so sometimes I'm hand holding these, which is one of the reasons I love this 16 to 35L Canon with the stabilizer, because that stabilizer has bailed me out of a couple of difficult shots. But anyway, back to the Irix. It's got a couple really cool features I want to go over. First of all, at 11 millimeters, at f5.6, you can hyperfocal this lens to get everything from about 18 inches to infinity in focus. And that's kind of a cool feature. So for those of you that don't know what hyperfocal is, this is where you set the lens at a fixed position with the intention of having everything sharp in the deep depth of field from a certain point to another point. And again, at f5.6, you can get about 18 inches to 2 feet all the way to infinity. This lens has the scale for you so that you can do that. And so take a look over here. Now, what happens is you set your f-stop on the far away. You try to get infinity on the f-stop that you're using. And then on the other side of the scale, you will see what your minimum focus is going to be, because it has the depth of field scale. And then you just leave the focus at that point. What Irix did was they put this lock ring here. Okay, so you can actually lock that focus in place. And it's pretty good. If I really reef on it, I can move it. But why would I do that? It's not going to move on its own. So that's a great feature for an ultra-wide lens, to be able to lock that ring in place. So that's how I shoot this thing. I never focus this lens. Couple of things about the build quality. So this lens has pretty good build quality. It is weather sealed to some extent. Not as much as Canon weather seals their modern L series lenses, but it is weather sealed pretty well. They use those modern, what they call neutrino coatings, but they're the fingerprint resistant coatings on the lens. The lens is designed, again, Swiss designed, and then built in a factory in South Korea. It's got a spherical element and a low dispersion glass element. It's a well-corrected lens. A little bit of barrel distortion, particularly when you get up close, easily correctable in either Lightroom or Photoshop or any other editor. The lens flares a little bit, but not much. If you get the sun in the photo, you're probably going to get some flare. I mean, look at that big bulbous element on that thing. But it really controls flare pretty well. Again, pretty darn sharp too. This is a great lens for the money. Rented a Voigtlander 10mm lens, and I shot that on my EOS R, and this lens is better than that Voigtlander 10, which is like $1,000. Obviously the Voigtlander 10 is wider, and that's pretty impressive. It's 130 degrees on the Voigtlander 10, but this is a superior quality lens. It makes better pictures than that Voigtlander lens. So I like this. I didn't buy the Voigtlander lens because it just wasn't quite there. Don't get me wrong, the Voigtlander is pretty good, but this is a better lens. One of the advantages of Voigtlander is it's tiny. It's a rangefinder size lens, so it's a third the size of this, maybe a quarter. So if you really wanted a compact, ultra crazy wide for travel, maybe look at the Voigtlander. It's by no means poor. It vignettes pretty heavily out there on the corners. This lens, if you put it on a test chart, yeah, it's going to vignette. You're probably dropping a couple stops on the corners, but you really don't notice it in your photos, and it's also easily correctable. So the vignetting on this is really just not a problem. On that Voigtlander 10, it's kind of a problem. I mean, yeah, you can correct it, but you start to get some noise up in the corners on that one. And then the Canon 11 to 24, again, $3,000 lens. Its vignetting is even better controlled than this. It's sharper on the corners, sharper in the middle. It's a better lens all the way around. The Blackstone versus the Firefly. So the Blackstone is made out of a magnesium alloy finish, so it's metal. It's got the etched scale here, so all the letters and numbers on here are etched, and then they have like a slightly sort of luminescent a glow to them, so you can kind of see them a little better in low light situations. This is made, the barrel is made out of ABS plastic. Now, underneath the ABS plastic, this is a heavy, all metal lens mount. It's got the dust seal here, the weather seal. I mean, this is a nicely made lens for the less expensive one. I decided that I was going to pocket the extra 150, 200 bucks and get this version here. But if you really want something that's just got a truly premium, like Leica grade finish, the Blackstone version gives you that. The optics and the focus, everything's the same in the lens. There is no, according to Irix, there's no optical performance difference between the two. It's just purely finish and exterior build quality. So keep that in mind when pricing this lens out. So that's really all I have on the Irix 11mm. Great lens, highly recommend it. Be sure to go to photofair.com, check out the rest of the 2020 calendar. We are going to have a small photo fair show in San Rafael, California on June 27th. It's going to be in the parking lot of Seawood Photo. So that'll be about half the size of a regular photo fair, but we're going to have a big camera store right next door with all kinds of great deals. So keep a lookout for that. We'll have more information on that in the next month or so. Also, Portland coming up in September on the 19th. Photo fair, that's our biggest photo fair show now, and we're doing our 5th show in Portland. And then in November, we'll be back at the Newark Pavilion for the Classic Photo Fair, our 45th year of Photo Fair. And so that's going to be kind of a good show too. That'll be in November on. So thanks for watching. Come back again. We'll see you for the next video or at the next Photo Fair show.